everyone, welcome to economics class. At the very onset, let me congratulate all of you for successfully participating in your chapter test. Those who were not able to participate or answer correctly, please don't be disheartened. I am planning to take another test which I will notify a few days before the test date. So keep preparing and let's hope for the best. Now, before I start today's topic, let us do two important things. First is discuss the homework that I gave you last week. I gave you two fill in the blanks. Most of you could not do it correctly. And the second, we will discuss the question and answers that came for this chapter test. So let's get started. Okay, now the question that I had given for you all as a homework was a fill in the blanks related to the GDP, calculation of GDP. So when we calculate the GDP, we take into account the value of goods and services and not the number. Okay, that is the final answer. The answers are marked in red if you can see. Then we take into account the final goods in the process and not the intermediate goods. Here the example that I have given is that a farmer sells the corn to the flour mill at rupees 40 per kg. The mill grinds the corn and sells it to the chip company for rupees 50 per kg. Finally, the chip company uses all these raw materials and produces 10 packets of chips, where per packet of chips which is sold in the market to us is rupees 60. So finally, what is the final goods and value of the goods and services of 10 packets? That is what we are going to take into account. So it will be 60 into 10 because one packet is rupees 60. So we are calculating for total, right? So it is into 10. So 10 is the production number. So we are going to calculate the value. So to calculate the value, you need to find out per packet price, which is rupees 60. So it's 60 into 10, which is rupees 600 is the total final value of goods and services of that particular chips, where chips is the final goods and all the other things used in the process, whether it's corn or corn flour or salt or oil, all these are intermediate products whose value is included in rupees 600. So we do not take it into account separately, right? So these are intermediate products. Here are corn flour, salt and oil. Now what are we doing here? We are taking into account only final goods and services. The value of the final goods already includes the value of all intermediate goods. So that was the fill in the blanks which I have marked in red. Now, if we keep on counting all the intermediate products, so what will happen? We'll get an incorrect picture because we will be doing the error which is known as the double calculation or double counting or multiple counting. So we will try to avoid that. So what we are doing here is, therefore, while calculating the value of corn, flour and other raw materials again is incorrect. That is the answer. We will not calculate it again, as we would be counting the value of the same items multiple times, so or double times. So finally, the value of the total goods and services produced in each sector in a particular year is called what? It is called the GDP or the gross domestic product. That was your first homework. Now the second homework was, I had given 3 statements and I have asked you all to arrange it in a proper sequence. What comes first? So first comes, basically the first thing that comes is the number of final goods and services produced are counted, right? So we first count the number of goods and services. Then, because the production process is complicated and has many stages or multiple stages, so we take into account only the final goods and services. And this is done so that we avoid multiple counting or double counting of the value of goods and services, where the value of goods is included multiple times in the national output. What is multiple counting? So multiple counting is where the same product is counted number of times and finally we do the error which is called multiple counting or double counting. So if a question comes in the exam, what is double counting or multiple counting? So it is basically the error where, or the mistake where we calculate the value of goods and services many times in the production process. And finally we get the GDP. So the GDP picture that we get is wrong. Now let's come to the recall part. What have we done in the last class? This was last to last class. It was related to the GDP. So GDP is finally the sum of the value of the final goods and services within a country. It is not across the world, it is within a country during a particular year. And while comparing sectors, we take into account two elements. Remember it, first we take into account the number of goods and services which is produced, basically the GDP, and second is the number of people employed in that particular sector. So these are the two things which are used in doing a comparison between the three sectors of the economy. Now, while comparing the three sectors, we saw a particular pattern, especially in the developed countries. And what was the pattern? The pattern seen was that in the initial stages of development over more than 200 years back, farming was the only way of survival, and it was probably the only sector, only occupation, anything related to agriculture, forest, mining, right? Anything where you exploit and extract the raw materials and produce things using that. But in the last few years, in the initial years, after that there were a lot of changes. And what was the change? The whole farming scenario changed and primary sector grew and boomed, and as a result the number of people who worked in the primary sector earlier was not required to work that much in that primary sector. Why? Because modern farming methods and technology were used in the agriculture. So the work which was earlier done by 10 people could now be done by machines, and only 5 people can do that work. So what would the other people do? So those people diverted from primary to the next sector, which is the secondary sector, because with the evolution of the primary sector, a number of jobs were created, a number of products were created, a number of factories were erupting, and this saw the boom of the secondary sector, where number of people employed increased and the number of goods produced also increased compared to the primary sector. So the shift of the economy happened from the primary to the secondary sector. So the contribution to the national output, which is the GDP, changed from primary, who was the biggest contributor earlier in the initial times, from then to secondary sector, which changed. The contribution of the secondary sector increased. Finally, in the last 100 years, we saw another change or transition, where we saw that the tertiary sector became the most important sector of the economy, because it saw an unprecedented, unexpected, a surprising growth in the past 100 years. Why? Because its role as a supporting agent to the other two sectors increased many-fold or many times. So the primary and the secondary sector became increasingly dependent on the tertiary sector for the services it produces. Without the tertiary sector, primary and the secondary sector could not survive. Now, page number 23 of your book. Now, there was a question which we did not take up in the last class. It was related to this recall topic which we were discussing right now. So, what does the history of the developed countries indicate about the shift that have taken place between the sectors? So, what was the indicator? The history, because right now we are only discussing the pattern of development of the sectors in all developed countries, how the transition shift from primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary happened in all developed nations. Okay, how they became developed from developing nation, that is what we have been discussing. So the history of the developed nations indicate that there was a huge shift from the secondary to the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector has become the most important sector in terms of not only production but also employment. That is your answer. The second question which came in this page number 23 exercise was arranged this jumble which has been given. It is basically the definition of GDP. They have added a lot of errors in this particular paragraph. Things which are not actually a part of GDP are also included in this sentence, you need to identify it. Now when you identify, they are saying that you produce in last 5 years. Now GDP is not calculated in 5 years, it is calculated on a yearly basis. So that is the first mistake there. And what is the correct answer? The correct answer is that we count the value of final goods and services and not the intermediate goods and services produced in a particular year. That is the correct definition of GDP. So to count goods and services, we add the number that are produced. We count all those that are produced in the last 5 years, which is absolutely a wrong statement. Since we couldn't leave out anything, we add up all the goods and services, which again is wrong, because we don't add up all the goods and services, we add up only the final goods and services. Please remember this. This is the correct answer. Now let's move on to the discussion about the chapter test. I gave you 10 questions. The first was, what is the correct the meaning of HDI? It stands for Human Development Index. The second question was, which of the following statement is true for renewable resources? The correct statement is renewable resources are replenished, means it can be recreated by the nature over a period of time. Then the third question is, which of the following statement is true for development? For development, the correct definition of development means that the notion, the idea of development differs from person to person in different societies also. Then the fourth question was, which of the following statement is a drawback of using average income as a measure of development? The drawback of measuring using averages is that it cannot indicate the differences in the income level of the people. Then Kerala has a low infant mortality rate. Why? Because it has very good education and health facilities. What is the relationship between price of goods and its demand? This is one question many of you all did a little error. Now this is something which is basically common sense. This is a topic, if any of you take economics in your class 10 and 12 and 11, you will get it in details. But the idea is that, suppose if you have 100 rupees with you and you need to buy a chocolate which is for 10 rupees, you will not think twice for buying 2 chocolates for 20 rupees, right? But if the price of chocolate is rupees 50, would you buy 2 chocolates? No, because you have only 100 rupees. So probably you will buy only 1 chocolate. Again, when the price of chocolate is rupees 5, what will you do? Instead of buying 2 chocolates, probably you will buy 4. For 5 rupees, 5 into 4 is equal to rupees 20. You will not hesitate to spend that much of money. So when the price increases, the demand goes down. Just remember, it's inversely proportional. One goes up, the other goes down. When the demand increases, price goes down. Price increases, demand goes down. Right? So that is the thing. Now, what is happening in this situation? I went to the market and I found that the price of chicken was local chicken was some 450-500 rupees. And I did not buy because the price was too high. So I thought I can survive without eating chicken for a few more months. So when the price increased, my demand for chicken reduced. Well, again, if the same chicken would have been sold at rupees 150 per kg, I wouldn't have hesitated buying 2 kgs, right? Because I would have ended up spending some 300 rupees and it would have been good for my budget. So that is the relationship. Then the 7th question that I gave you was, which of the following reports published in the UNDP compares the country's education, health and per capita income level of standards? What is it? It's the HDI, HDR. It is not HDI. HDI is a part of HDR, which is the Human Development Report. Now, which of the following question needs to be answered when thinking of national development? Many of you made a few mistakes here. When you think of national development, you think not just about a small population, you think of a larger population. You keep in mind the interest of a huge population, not the interest of one person or a small community. Okay, that is why whenever you make any decision, the government takes any decision, it takes the decision thinking whether that would be beneficial for more people or less people. So the decision that the government would take would be beneficial for more people. That is what everyone needs to keep in mind when you think of national development, larger interest of the people. Now, when is the person considered to be undernourished? Of course, when his BMI is some less than 18.5. Which of the following defines sustainable development best? Now this is easy. Sustainable development refers to meeting human development goals while maintaining the ecosystem and the natural system to provide and replenish the natural resources upon which the economy is dependent, because the other option which was given is of course not related to sustainable development, because it talks about promotion of international trade, and sustainable development talks about the overall development of an area, of a country, of the world, keeping in mind that we have to reserve and preserve resources for our future generation and use it in a better way, and ensure that we are using less of non-renewable resources and using more of renewable resources which can be replenished, which can be brought back over a period of time. So these were the questions that I had set for the chapter test, and this time, because it was the first test, I took a very easy peasy test, but next time probably it will be a little more difficult. So let's start today's topic today. Learning objective. Before we start, let's understand what we are going to study today. We did the comparative study of the sectors, then we also understood the history of evaluation, how from primary to secondary and finally secondary to tertiary sector happened in the developed country. Here we are going to study today how the transition or the pattern of development or of movement from primary to secondary to tertiary happened in the context of India. We are going to discuss how the shift of economy from primary to secondary to tertiary happened in India. And India, as we all know, is a developing country, so its pattern is not exactly the same as that of a developed country, even though it's almost same. Then we are also going to find out the reasons and analyze the reasons why the tertiary sector became so huge. It rose to such a level that other two sectors were becoming day and day dependent on the tertiary sector. So we are going to discuss the important reasons behind the rise of the tertiary sector to importance. We'll evaluate the answers or the reasons for that. So let's get started. Now this table is there in your book, this graph. Now let's discuss it. If you look at it here, it's basically portraying the GDP by the primary, secondary and the tertiary sector. The first year where it's in the bar graph, it's shown is that 1973-74, where the blue color indicates the primary, the red indicates the secondary, and the tertiary is indicated by the green color. In the year 1973-74, you will see that out of the three sectors, total out of this primary, secondary and tertiary, together they give the GDP, right? This blue plus red plus green in that particular year gives us the GDP of that year, right? Now in the when we do a comparison between the three sectors, when you see it in the graph, you will see that the blue is of the highest proportion. So what can you come to the conclusion? We can come to the conclusion that the largest producing sector in 1973-74 was the primary sector. Then let's come to the second bar, where again the blue, red and the green total gives us the GDP for the year 2013-14. Now here again you will see that there is a growth in the primary, there is a growth in the secondary as well as a growth in the tertiary sector. But the amount of growth in all the three sectors is different. Blue, definitely there was a growth, primary there was a growth, secondary there was a growth, but what you see in the graph here, the tertiary sector has grown in an unprecedented way. So the largest producing sector in 2013 and 14 from this graph in India, this is what we are discussing right now. In India, is tertiary sector. So it became the largest producing, the biggest manifest sector in the economy out of the three sectors. That means the contribution of the tertiary sector in the economy, that is the GDP, in 2013-14 is highest by the tertiary sector. Clear? So the question which can come from here is that in what is the trend that you see in India in terms of the three sectors? We have to say that for 40 years back, it was the primary sector which was the most developed and which contributed maximum to the GDP. But now what we see is that the tertiary sector is the highest or the largest producing sector, and its contribution to the GDP is also the highest. Now there is another question here given. Can you say which sector has grown the most over 40 years? Of course, it is clearly evident, the green color, which is basically the tertiary sector, which has evolved and become very, very big, and the growth is something nobody had expected. Finally, what is the GDP of India in 2013-14? Now, the GDP of India, how do you calculate? You calculate the final value of all the goods and services produced. So, we'll calculate the value of blue color, red color and the green color. Together, it gives us the value of GDP. In 2013-14, it is somewhere which has crossed above 500,000. I think it's 1 tens 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh. My God, that's a huge number. So 55 lakhs approximately. That is the GDP. But nowadays we actually calculate the GDP in percentage, and this is basically a rough calculation. They have calculated the value of GDP in rupees, but we generally, when you go to class 11, you will do it in percentage. So this is just an understanding. You will not get a question based on this, but what you need to remember about India is that initial times it was the primary sector which has evolved the most. Then now it is the tertiary sector. But nobody is going to ask you what has happened to the secondary sector. Yet you need to know what has happened to the secondary sector. The secondary sector has also seen a growth in the last 40 years. It has grown. What it was in the initial days and what it is now, it has also seen a growth. But the growth is lesser compared to the primary and the tertiary sector. So manufacturing sector or the secondary sector did show some growth, but compared to the primary and the secondary, the growth was lesser. Now, from all this that you have understood from the graph, what the question that arises now is, what does the comparison between the year 1973-74 and 2013-14 shows? What do you understand from this? We have understood, and we can draw only one calculation, is that the pricing importance of the tertiary sector in production and its contribution to the GDP has increased and increased at a rate which nobody had calculated and thought of. So now we are going to discuss the rising importance and find out the reasons behind the growth of the tertiary sector. This is an assumption that I have drawn here. The picture shows the various kinds of tertiary sector jobs, services that is provided by these people, whether it's a chef, it's a doctor, it's an engineer, or an IT professional, or a call center worker. All these come under the tertiary sector. Of course, there are many more uncountable jobs in this sector. Now, if you just look at this, what do you see? All the three sectors have grown from what it was 40 years back. But primary sector showed a better growth compared to the secondary. But compared to the tertiary, both the sectors were below. So primary was second. For the best growth was shown by the tertiary. Then comes the primary, and finally the secondary sector in the context of India. So the tertiary sector has emerged as the largest producing sector in India, and it has replaced the primary sector in the last 40 years. So the last 40 years, what you need to remember here, the question which comes generally is, which is the largest producing sector in India now? and which sector did it replace? Earlier it was primary, but now the tertiary sector has taken over that position and it is now the largest and the most major contributor to the GDP. This is what you need to remember. Now, why is the tertiary sector becoming so important in India? Why? Why is it becoming so important? There are many reasons. Let's find out 5 important reasons which are there in your book. This is very, very important from your exam point of view. Generally, a 5-mark question comes or maybe a 3-mark, but we are going to first analyze these 5 major reasons. So, let's get started. What do you see in the video now? You see a hospital, you see some educational institutes, people studying, you see banks, names of banks that you have come across in your daily life. You see a police officer, that is defense or security, and law and order. All these are services and which come under which sector? The tertiary sector. Now, how is it a reason for the growth of tertiary sector? Now, first of all, in any country, especially in a developing country, there are certain services which are considered to be basic services. By basic, we means the most essential services. Services such as a hospital or a school or any educational institute. Defense, security, banks, corporations, insurance, municipality, postal department, police stations, telegraph services. All these are services which you need whether you are a rich person or a poor person. Everybody needs it, these services. So these are the services which come under a term called the basic services, which are essential services. Now, in a country like ours, it is seen that these services are generally produced and provided by the government. Now, there is an unprecedented growth and development in these sectors. Whenever there is an election, what do you hear the parties saying? That we are going to give you basic services, we are going to make more government hospitals, more schools, better banking facilities, more security for the citizens of the country. These are the various promises made by the various political parties. So what are they basically saying? They are basically saying that they are going to give you better basic services. Now, why and how are these connected to the development of the tertiary sector? Now, this is why it happens is that in a country like India, especially a country like India, which is a developing country, the responsibility of providing the basic services belongs to the government. It is a government-sponsored activity. The government is liable and responsible for providing to its citizens all the basic facilities and services. So automatically you will see a growth in these services, and when these services increase, automatically the tertiary sector increases, because these are a part of tertiary sector or the tertiary services. So the first reason is that the basic services are provided by the government in developing countries, and because it is a government's responsibility, so government ensures that these are provided in a better way to the government for a better running of the country. That's the first point. Now in this diagram, what do you see? You see that the primary and the secondary sector is supported by the sector which is known as the tertiary sector. Okay, so the primary and the secondary sector is completely dependent because it is supported by the tertiary sector in all ways. So that is why tertiary sector is a connecting sector. It's a bridge between the primary and the secondary sector. Like for example, if I produce sugar cane, now to convert it into sugar, sugarcane of course is a primary sector product. Now to convert it into sugarcane, I need to take the help of the secondary sector, right? Because that's an industrial product. Now who will transport the sugar from sugarcane from the primary sector, from the fields and the farms to the factories? Some transport agency, some people working there, some laborers. So all these people are providing a service from moving the product from primary to secondary. That is why it is known as a connecting sector. Now when this connecting sector sees a growth when there is a growth in the primary and the secondary. Suppose, like I said, no, primary also saw a development because of a lot of technology, because of modern farming methods. So when the primary sector saw a growth, because of the growth of primary sector, there was a growth in the secondary sector. And because of the growth of both of these sectors, what happened? There was an automatic growth in the tertiary sector. Demand for the tertiary sector increased. Okay, the growth, primary and the secondary are dependent on the tertiary sector. When the primary increased in developed, tertiary also increased, and because these two are connected by the tertiary sector, automatically tertiary sector went up. But it went up to such a rate that it left behind the primary and the secondary sector. So the development of agriculture and industry led to the development of services such as transport, because the moment you produce something, you need to transport it, you need to sell it, that is trade, business, and you need to store it also. So these are the various services which developed and erupted. Third point is that as income level of people rise, when you have more income, money in hand, what do? You go out and spend, right? You go out and eat outside, you go to a restaurant, you go to a mall, do shopping, you also go traveling, right? You would go and enroll yourself to a better school, a better private college, or maybe take some professional training, or you go to a better hospital with more facilities. So these are the various things where you will put your extra money, or if you have a more income. Right. So when this happened, and what are these things that I have talked about? Whether it's shopping, traveling, eating out, that is restaurant, what is this? These are all services, right? Which are basically service and final products in the tertiary sector. So because when people have a larger income, more money in their hands, they will spend more. Like if both the parents are working, for example, so every Sunday, the mother, because she is working, she would want to take an off from cooking. She would say, let's go out and chill today, let's go and watch a movie, eat out, because she has money in hand and the family can afford to take up leisure activities, leisure and pleasure activities. That is why when income rises, demand for these activities also rises. Right now, people do have money in hand, but some also do not have money in hand. But malls are closed. Even if you have money in your hand, you will not be able to go and spend it on these leisure and pleasure activities, which are basically entertainment. And this is mostly seen in bigger cities, in urban areas where people have more income. The fourth point why the tertiary sector saw an increase was the severe development of, or a high major development in the IT sector. What is the information technology? Information technology or communication technology is a new service which has developed in the last 10-20 years. So these include services like software industry. It includes things like information technology enabled services which are connected with computers in general language, BPO or the call centers, as you say. So the information technology includes a gamut or a plethora of activities, which includes all the mobiles, your internet services, all the softwares and the hardwares, databases, servers, all these things, and all the support that you get. Like things have been made easier now. Like for example, you go to a bank. Nowadays, who goes to a bank to withdraw money? Nobody, right? You have your ATM card or your credit or debit card. You go to an ATM, slash it in, and then you get some cash. So that is how things have been made easy by the information technology. Growth in the information technology enabled services. Now these are new services which have seen production to a rapid growth, and this is also one reason why the tertiary sector has developed. Earlier, when I remember when I was a small child, my father used to take me to the bank and we used to stand in long queues just to take out a few thousand rupees. Now who does that? Nobody. Everything happens online. You have apps for everything that you require, right? From ordering food, buying clothes, transferring money, everything is done within a click or with just a click of a finger. So that is how things have changed, all because of the support provided by the information and the communication technology advancements. So this is one reason why tertiary sector saw a very huge growth. So this new services that I just talked about, they became very powerful and dominant. And right now, even while I'm giving you a video lecture, what is it? I'm using technology. Otherwise, during this pandemic, would it been possible to take a class? No way, right? Without the mobile, we are all handicapped right now. So there's one last point which we'll again discuss in the 4th chapter of your book, but in short, you just need to remember the government has created many policies like privatization, liberalization, and because of these policies we see a growth in the tertiary sector. I did give you a short discussion about globalization, liberalization and privatization in class 9, but still let's just understand that liberalization happened somewhere in 1991 when we opened our economy, when we allowed foreign companies to come and invest in our country, when we allowed foreign brands to sell their products in our country, and also we went out to sell our products outside. That is why we have all global brands in our country as of now. So that whole process of opening the market, free trade, where people can come and go and whenever they want to, that whole business is called liberalization. Privatization means giving the ownership or allowing a private company to run some business. For example, we have private schools, we have private hospitals, we have private airports as of now also. These are run by all private organizations. So these are certain privatization processes. We'll discuss it in details in the 4th chapter. Globalization, in one word, is interconnectedness. Means now the world has become into a small globe wherein everything is connected to each other, and thanks to technology that we are able to do. Within the click of a finger, you'll be able to book a ticket, you'll be able to travel anywhere. Of course not as of now. The whole process where people can move to and fro from one country to the other, where you are connected to someone sitting in US in a click of a finger, that whole process is called globalization, where we have become one world. Okay, because of the internet facilities, communication technology and all that. So all these has led to the increase of job opportunities in the tertiary sector. These economic reforms have changed the way India has evolved in terms of GDP. And right now, if I have to tell you, the IT sector, it is one classic example of contribution to the GDP. Why? Because Indian people have quality, have this. So all these IT companies have developed in India because we provide quality service at cheaper cost, and that is why the information technology in India saw a boom in the early 2000s. So that is why, and all because of liberalization, free economy, right? We'll discuss this later, but you just need to remember that the 5th reason is the government having policies like privatization, liberalization and globalization. In short, you can remember these 3 terms using LPG. L stands for liberalization, P for privatization and G for globalization. 3 words, 3 policies which has led to the increase of number of jobs you find in the tertiary sector. So there are many other reasons. Of course, in your book, these are the 5 reasons mentioned. So let's concentrate on these 5 reasons. Now, in spite of all the growth happening in the tertiary sector, we still see disparities, means gaps in the growth of tertiary sector. Now here, before we move to that, you must remember one thing. Services in India, all sorts of tertiary sector services includes 2 different kinds of people, 2 types of people work. First is the high skilled educated people like you and me. Okay, people who have gone to school, who have developed professional skills like a doctor, engineer, a pilot, a teacher or a banker and many more. Okay, who have undergone some training, professional training, and who have some specialized skills. Then, but this number is a small number. Number of people in this particular area is small. Then the service sector also includes a large number of people who have less skills, okay, but this number is huge. Now they work in the service sector too, like any vendor, any small shopkeeper, transport people, people who work all kinds of repair jobs, people who work in the malls, you know, whether it's a security guard, whether it's a sales guard, they get very small income, and their jobs are not permanent because they don't have that kind of skills. So they are less skilled workers, which is the second type of people working in the service sector. Now these people somehow they manage their living. They don't really get a good income also, but they don't have any alternative choice. They are forced to work in this sector because they have no jobs in the agricultural sector, neither do they have any job in the secondary sector. Because they have no skills, they cannot become a doctor, engineer, but they are forced to work in these petty jobs. But this is the area, and this is the part of the service sector or the tertiary sector which has maximum number of people employed in it. So actually the worst part is that even though we see a huge growth rise in the tertiary sector, it is this kind of people who are also working there. Right now, when all the malls are closed, what is happening? The people working in the malls are not getting salaries, right? So what is happening? They are the worst sufferers. Not a doctor or an engineer, because they earn more, they have education, they have better skills, and their number is also less. So service sector, a question which comes in the exam is that what are the two categories of people who work in the service sector? These are high skilled educated workers and the less skilled uneducated workers. Less skilled people they have a job which is not permanent in nature, whereas high skilled educated workers have a more permanent job and their number is less, whereas less skilled workers are large in number. Just remember these points. Anything can come from here, in the exam. Now the growth in so what we have understood here as a conclusion is that the growth in the tertiary sector is not uniform. Yes, we do see a huge growth in the tertiary sector, but it's not a growth where everybody is growing. It's a growth where some areas of the sector is growing, right? And which is the saddest part right now. So what have we studied today? We have studied that the tertiary sector has seen a huge boom in the last 40 years. The reasons behind is that the basic services in our country are provided by the government, and so these sectors grow on their own because the government is liable and responsible to put money in it. And finally, these are sponsored by the government, and that's why they will see a growth. Then the growth in the primary and the secondary sector automatically leads to the growth of the tertiary sector. Of course, people have started earning more, so they have started demanding some new services which were not there earlier, like shopping, could be tourism, and that is why we see a growth in the tertiary sector. Then we also see that new services such as related to information technology, communication technology, advancements into technology, these are new services associated with IT. Okay, and because of these new services growth, the tertiary services have also increased in size, because these are all in part of the tertiary sector. Finally, government has made various policies, LPG like I said, and which has increased the growth of the tertiary sector because the number of jobs have increased. But there is also a negative aspect here, that even though the tertiary sector sees a huge rise, it's not uniform in nature. Some areas have developed, some areas of tertiary sectors have seen development, whereas some has not, because the tertiary sector has two kinds of people working. High skilled workers like you, me, who have undergone training, education, who gets jobs which are permanent in nature. Whereas there is another category which includes people with lesser skills, and they have jobs which are not permanent in nature. Okay, and these people are the ones who are not seeing the growth that the tertiary sector is promising. So the questions which generally come from this particular topic is that service sector employs two different kinds of people. Who are these? You have to write. I just shared the answer. Write it down. Why is the tertiary sector growing so rapidly or gaining importance in India? This could be any of these. The sentence formation can be different, but the answer remains the same. Give 5 reasons. I've just shared it. Write it down. Give examples, which also I have just shared it. It's also mentioned in your book. Go through it after watching the video. Also, the same question can come in a different form. Evaluate the rising importance of the tertiary sector in India. Same answer. Now, this is also your homework. These 2 questions. Now, do not write the question number 2 and both or. It's or is means its answer is the same. It's the pattern of the question which is different, but the answer remains the same. Why I have shared both the questions is that anything can come. Do not confuse. They can give you a confusing question, but the answer for both is the same. You have to write an introduction while giving the answer. A short introduction about tertiary sector. What is the tertiary sector? It is the service sector which generates services and supports and aids the primary and the secondary sector. Thereafter, you will give the 5 reasons I have given and draw a conclusion that tertiary sector has seen an unprecedented growth in the last 40 years, but this growth is not uniform. This is how you will write the answer, and this is also your homework. This is the homework I am sharing also. Next Saturday we will be please submit this homework. These are important questions. Kindly do it properly and submit it to me. And next class we'll be discussing the employment structure in the various sectors. So thank you.